Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Delight in Fright. I am your host, Luna, and we have a very lovely special guest in the house. His name is John Ryland. Is that correct? Is that how you say your last name?
That's it.
Ryland.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. I'm glad I got it right. And
John
our love
Ryland.
and our lovely cat is not with us tonight. She has abandoned us to go on a cruise. So I hope she's having a wonderful time out there at sea. I definitely am very jealous. I wish I was out there at sea also. John, have you ever been on a cruise before?
I have. We went to the Bahamas about, I guess, right before COVID, and it was wonderful. It was different, but it was really nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love traveling, and it's pretty great to get out there sometimes. So I hope she's having a wonderful time. So for tonight's show, we have a very special show. We will be discussing some of John's work. He is a writer, and he's done some very awesome books. I've had the chance to read The Unkindness of Ravens, and then I believe you also do the Southern Gothic, right?
Yes, yes, I did.
Oh, that's so phenomenal. So let's get a little bit of more about some of your background there, Ryan. So how I'm sorry, John, I mixed your last name and your you have to forgive me. It's been a long day. So how did you get into horror and how did that come about?
Well, horror is more of a later thing that I got into. I always loved to read, always loved to write little stories and things like that. And all the way through high school, elementary, high school, and on, I just wrote poems and stories and everything. And as I got a little older, I guess a little more cynical, I began to see more of the darkness that's in the world. Um, and it intrigued me because I it just intrigues me how people can be a certain way, how people can be bad people, and it doesn't affect them. It doesn't bother them to be so bad. And I just sort of went down that road and found that I enjoy it. So I kind of keyed in on the darker themes, um, mostly because a lot of life experiences, a lot of things that I've gone through kind of took me there. So I just kind of stayed. So
Yeah, in a way, do you find it a little bit cathartic writing about it? It's kind of like a stress reliever in a way for you.
it must, because I really enjoy writing the darker themes. Even though a lot of my themes, while they're some are really dark and some are really twisted, there is still I always still like to include a little bit of light, a little bit of hope in there. Sort of like the one light in the darkness for people. Um, because I mean, you don't want to be completely dark. People begin to talk about you, so you always want to lend a
Yeah.
little bit of hope, in the
Yeah.
story.
And I like that because honestly, if like let's say in a perfect world, everything was perfect, everything was, you had absolutely no struggles in your life, then you would not build character, you would not know how to go through challenges. So I think it gives a lot of perspective when you do have bad situations arise in a book,
Hmm.
and then the character somehow is able to overcome that. And then they have a different perspective as opposed to not having any of those challenges and then kind of, not having reach their full potential. Does that make sense?
It really does. And actually, in my latest book, and we'll discuss it later, but one of the taglines for it is that idyllic childhoods don't make strong people or very good stories. So if you have a perfect life, it's really probably boring, I would think.
Yeah, there isn't much character building there going on. If you
Mm-mm.
everything's perfect, everything's dandy, the whole world is given to you, and you just like never know pain, you never know suffering. Eventually, it's not going to keep that way. So eventually, when
Mhm.
something does happen that's unfavorable, you're not going to know how to cope with it.
Mhm.
It could be anything. It can set people off because they've just never been taught the struggle. And
Well,
it's important too to not always struggle. Also, like you were saying, not always everything dark, because then if everything is a struggle, then what's the point?
mhm.
Like, you know what I mean?
Well, it's like my big thing, I guess my stick that I go with is that um, is horror in real life, because I mean life can be full of horror.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things in life that are scary, um, and that's what I like to create: realistic people, just normal, everyday people who encounter things that are typically in the horror genre, supernatural, some, you know, mental illness, isolation, things like that. So I
Very
always
real
like to
topics.
to put people into very bad situations.
Well, yeah, to see how this character is gonna develop and see, what kind of makes them tick. I can see the appeal to reading some of that. And it kind
And
of
well, for me, uh, it all really starts with an idea, with a character sort of,
mhm.
and the character sort of builds themselves as we go, and they and I are both on this journey together, and a lot of times I'm not really sure where it's going to end, and people when I say that to people, they think it's just a writer thing that writers say. But a lot of times I really don't know how the story's gonna end. And
Mm.
if they I'll try to nudge it in one direction or another, and it just doesn't work. And the
Mhm.
character that I built will figure a way out, and they will solve the problem for me.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. It kind of reminds me, so I play a little bit of this video game called World of Warcraft. I have a
Hmm.
role-playing guild and I role play. Role play is kind of like writing a book. So I had made this one character, like a little orc guy, and the only reason why I made him is because he was supposed to come in, save the day, and then I was gonna kill him off, right? Or I should say unalive him, because the
Yeah.
algorithm hates that word. So I was gonna immediately return to sender him. And then I wrote such a deep
Oh yes.
backstory for him. Like it was so detailed that when I was doing the role play, I'm like, God, I can't unalive him. He's just so well written, so I kept him. I spared him because I was like, I can't do that to him. I developed his backstory so much that he's not just like a pawn anymore. So I kept him. So I can see why
So
you would
that
say that if you know.
when you develop a character to that extent, they do sort of take over. And when my first book that I wrote was Southern Gothic, it wasn't so much in the horror genre as much as it was just dark. It dealt with two friends that were dealing with the schizophrenic break, and it got pretty dark and pretty gritty. But I spent a lot of time with those two ladies in the book and building their characters. And when it was done, you kind of miss them. You kind of miss
Mhm.
being with that character. and that's how you know. I think you've built a good character, like
Yeah.
you were saying.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, man," because I had written so much into it where I had given him a backstory. He came from this family, from this clan, and they did this and they did that. And I'm like, man, I put this a guy through so much bad stuff that I'm like, I can't just end him like that. That is just not good. And then I just ended up just kind of him rescuing the day, but also rescuing himself also. So that was kind of nice. I mean, that was my own way of I don't want to get rid of this story because I put so much effort into it, you know? And I'm not really a
It's true.
storyteller.
It's
I just kind of like role playing, and I think if you invest a lot of time into it, you can come up with really good stories, and it's kind of nice. So
it
now,
is. And
I was gonna say,
go
speaking
ahead.
of storytelling, um, how did you know you were gonna be a writer? How did you get into writing and all that?
Well, I took a very long and winding path to get where I am today. I began writing, at an early age. I wrote several novels when I was a teenager, and they were absolutely horrible. They were trash. But I did learn how to build a novel from them. So they did teach me that. So I got into poetry, did some poetry, published some poems early on, and way back in the late '90s, and a couple of short stories. And then I kind of had some personal issues, and I didn't write much of anything for 18 years. And so then one day I just decided I want to sit down and I want to write this book that I've been thinking about. And we had a little laptop, and I sat down at the kitchen table and I wrote the first draft for Souls Harbor in 2 weeks and knocked it out. And that just, I think it just opened the floodgates, and they just came pouring out after that.
That's so awesome how you're able to do that. Do you ever see yourself like kind of writing a book, and then when you're writing something you're like, oh, I have an idea for a second book, and then you kind of have to write some of that, or do you?
Well, what I, for me, a book will begin in my head, and it'll stay there for. I mean, it could stay there for weeks. It could stay there for months, just kind of getting kicked around while I'm at work doing stuff. So it'll be in the back of my head when I'm writing the book that I'm working on one now. Um, and it is content to just kind of simmer back there and strengthen and formulate some. And and I have before written a first draft to a book, set it aside, and just immediately started on another one. And so I'm sitting there with two first drafts that need a lot of revisions, but it's just part of the process. You have to write it when it wants to be written. I feel like.
Yeah, that's very true. And you have a full-time job also on top of
Yes,
writing?
yes. I'm in
Whoa.
construction and paint, so um, I work all day. I usually come home, and I have two boys. I have a 15 and an 11-year-old. They both play sports, so we have that, and just stuff with the family in the house and all that. So I usually will work on writing usually around 9 p.m. and finish up around midnight, and then go to bed and work, and then do the same thing the next day. So
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I don't know how you have the energy to, have the kids and write and still go to work and oof, my
it
hat
gets
tips to you.
it gets hairy sometimes, but I think I'm truly blessed with the ability to turn it on and off very quickly, or turn it on very quickly. because if say I have 2 hours, I know I have 2 hours. That's all I have. So I can jump on the computer and do some serious edits or do some serious writing for 2 hours. I don't have to sit here and go back through and read and kind of get in the mood for it. I can just jump on and knock out a few pages and then go and do whatever I need to do. So
Yeah,
I consider myself very lucky to be able to do that.
yeah, if I could say that is a superpower, I would, because I was very blessed to read some of your work that I was able to sample, and oh my goodness, it was just so like I couldn't tell you had all that going on in the foreground because it was just so seamless and it read really smooth. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, thank you.
So, getting a little bit into, you wrote Southern Gothic first, correct?
Yes, it actually is about 3 years old.
3 years
Uh,
old.
mhm. It
And
I had a few stories laying around that I'd written. And you do the whole submission grind, submission wait, rejection, this, and I just decided one day, you know what, I'm just gonna put them together and make a book and put it out there. And if people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. And it's funny. My wife was like, nobody reads short stories anymore. And I'm like, well, they don't have to read it. But it's still everywhere I go. It's my biggest in-person seller that I have ever everywhere. It's still the biggest in-person seller that I have.
so is it a short story?
Yes, it's a collection of short stories, actually.
Oh,
I,
yeah, I like them. I'm personally a big fan of them because
I
it
love them. I love them.
yeah, me too. Cause like nowadays with everybody's busy schedules, it's like I just want to crank out like a little story at night and then if I have time tomorrow and then cuz if you get into a really involved book, you'll read it like half of a chapter today and then who knows, you might not have time for another chapter like maybe till next week. And by
Mhm.
then you're like, "Wait a minute, what happened last time?"
Well,
Like
that's one of the points that I use when I try to sell in person. They'll ask me about what's a good book to kind of get a taste of your writing, and I will all invariably point them to Southern Gothic, and I'll tell them it's a collection of short stories, and it kind of runs the gamut of the dark genres from science fiction, dystopian, a little straight up horror, some serial killer, some fantasy, and I'm like, you can read a story tonight, and if you don't come back to it in 2 weeks, you don't have to try to figure out why is this lady stabbing him, or why is he, running away, or why is she being chased. I said, you get it all. You get it. You get the start, the middle, and the end, and it's done. And then you can just move on. So,
yes, I love that. I appreciate that. So let me share with everybody your link here. Let's go ahead and share it. So I actually found this on Amazon. So you guys can
mhm.
definitely purchase it. You guys can get it for $2.99 on Kindle. If you want the audiobook is $5.95, and if you want a awesome paperback, you guys can order it off of Amazon for $8.99. You could get some used ones also, but paperback is currently that price. So yeah, you guys, it's not very expensive. It's not like a $40 book where it's like
Very, very interesting point, and I always like to point this out for people. In the book, um, each story has a little picture that comes with it.
Mhm.
They used to do back in the old days. They had a little story, and they would have the
Yeah.
little picture up top. But each one of the stories, the artwork was done by a New Zealand artist named Novel Said. I commissioned her to draw those pictures just for Southern Gothic. And so I sent her the stories and she read them, and I gave her complete artistic freedom. I was like, you draw this, the picture that you think represents the story, and that's what she did. And so I kind of arranged them for the cover, and we were trying to come up with a name that would kind of encompass everything that the stories were. Um, I didn't want to just name it one story and others. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of just settled on Southern Gothic because the genre and everything that it encompasses, a lot of that is in the stories, and it's she has done some amazing artwork. I absolutely love her work,
Yeah,
and her
I
link to
like
her
it.
website is actually in the paperback.
Ooh. Yeah, it's really pretty. I like it. I like all the cogs and like it's really well put together. I'm a fan of it. What's your favorite little short story from this book? Is there one that stands out to
Yeah,
you?
two of my favorite short stories that I've ever written are in Southern Gothic. The
Ooh.
first one is Ollie and the Stick Man. Um, don't want to give too much away, but a young lady doodles a stick man on her arm in English class,
Mhm.
and she later comes to regret it in a very bad way. And
Ooh.
the second one that I absolutely adore is called "The Man with 100 Wives," and it's sort of a weird little science fiction piece about uh, where art and music and that type of energy where it all originates. So it was very fun. It was amazing to write those two stories. I still am very very proud of those two.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I see them in here. I see a lot of little good ones. And from what I'm seeing is from the table of contents, it'll be like, 10 pages for this one, a few for this one, 11 for
You get
this
you get a
one.
good
Like,
mix, yeah, of
yeah.
some longer ones, some shorter ones. Right in the middle, there's sort of a novelette that's a little long. Um, And so I think that's the appeal is that there's
Mhm.
something for everybody. Um, Not everybody really enjoys super horror, scary stuff, but they like the dark stuff. And so
Mhm.
I tend to bill myself, not to say that I am, but more along the lines of say Hitchcock-ish or M. Night Shyamalan, where it's dark and it's
Yeah.
odd, but it's not Stephen King scary type stuff. So
Yeah, there's more like realism, you think?
yeah, but just dark and some
Mhm.
some some scary stuff in there, but not. I kind of I'm in the horror genre just because I have to be somewhere, and
Yeah.
I like wearing black, so it was a natural fit. So
That is so awesome. That's so funny. And you live in the South, right?
yes, yes.
So
People ask me, how do you write Southern Gothic? And I first tell them, you have to know what Southern Gothic is. It's a genre that incorporates, poverty, mental illness, isolation, um, usually some type of hint or some supernatural element, usually a patriarchal antagonist. Um, just all of that, and I'm like, that's like my family reunion right there. I mean, that was my childhood was Southern Gothic. So I just write about what I know.
yeah, yeah. I've run into that with a lot of directors and writers that we talk to. They write what you know. I mean, you're not gonna write about, England or Australia if you've never even been there and you never
Yeah.
even seen it. You would
Well,
not know what it's like to be there.
I'm sort of a hybrid publisher. I have a publisher and they publish a lot of my books, but they tend to be a little slow. They want to do one a year maybe, and I'm just impatient. So I'll publish my own, and I go through the same steps they do. I hire an editor, do beta readers, do everything like they do. But my little imprint is called Nat Smoke Press, and a lot of people are like, "What is that?" Well, it actually originates from the South, and what it is, a Nat Smoke is a tin can that you get, and you light a piece of cotton cloth, an old shirt or something on fire. You let it catch up, and then you drop it in this tin can, and it just smolders. And the smoke chases away the mosquitoes and things,
Oh yeah.
and it's a gnat smoke. And so that's why I incorporated it into the name of my press, because I mean it's like I say on my website, it's crude but effective. It's southern, but it'll work anywhere. It
Mhm.
it's not especially pretty, but you know it works. And so that's me to a T, right there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's so fitting too for your kind of what you're writing, right?
It is.
So it does make
Most
sense.
most almost all of my writing takes place in the South. So
Yeah. Okay. And is there a website? You mentioned a website. What do you have a website?
yes, it is. Yeah, I do. It's gspressbooks.com. So natsmokepressbooks.com. So gspressbooks.com.
Ah, okay. I wanted to share it for our lovely viewers so they can kind of know what we're talking about. So on here you can find let's see, books.
Hmm.
Sorry if my computer will. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Um, bunch of awesome. The Muck. Ooh. Oh, that one seems fun. Reality of Dreams. I
Um,
had a really weird dream last night, so that'd be interesting. Oh, The Man with No Eyes. Oh, wow. Wow, you've written quite the plethora of books.
I've
I
got a lot. Um, and like I said, there's one coming out in the spring,
Ooh.
and I have some more. Yeah, you can click on that works in progress, and it'll take you, to the novels that I have written that are just waiting to go.
Okay, Three Nights at Jupiter. Is that the one that's coming out next year?
That's the one coming out in the spring.
Ooh, well, we cannot wait for that. So you guys can definitely visit the website and kind of check it out, check the blog post, check, everything going on with John here and his amazing work. We always love to showcase your websites and everything. That way, our viewers can check it out at their own leisure in case they can't right now because they're driving,
Hmm.
etc. But we always like to have it in here just so they know, they're aware, and it looks really nice. Like I like the artwork on the website. It's really pretty.
Thank you. I actually did every bit of it by myself.
Oh, you
I
did?
I did. It's crazy.
That's
But
awesome.
it's a process of just learning from your own mistakes and building, and I did pretty good now on the website. At first, it was a jumbled mess, but I've gotten it pretty much in line where I want it. So,
Nice, nice. Now, the book that I was able to sample was The Unkindness of Ravens. For
mhm,
our viewers that do not know and have no idea what it's about, I believe this one was released in 2022, correct?
mhm.
December?
Yes,
And
it
mhm.
it actually, my publisher uh, had said it was coming out in the spring. So I was like, well, that's good. It'll come out in the spring. But then they contacted me and they're like, look, we want to go ahead and rush it, put it out because we think it'll do well. And I was like, you think it'll do well right before Christmas? Because the genre is not really a Christmas theme, but they put it out in December and it did really well. It did fine. So
Ah, okay. Okay. That's awesome. Well, what for those that have not read the book and have no idea, but they're still very curious about it, can you let us know a little bit about what that one's about?
yeah, no problem. A It's the story of a young girl who into the woods behind her house, and she ultimately finds the dead body of a young boy who has been dumped back there. And she decides not to tell anybody about the body. Instead, she decides to take on the role of protector from a nearby flock of ravens who have also found the body. And you may or may not know that ravens are scavengers. And so things get pretty hairy, but it's really more a sad, tragic, dark tale than anything else. Not so much horror. It's just really twisted and weird because some of the young girl Miranda's past trauma begins to reawaken, and it kind of pushes her into some dark places. So
Ah, okay. A lot of would you consider Miranda to be like a person that can overcome that, or does she develop her like her character, or how do things end up for her? Well, I don't know. Probably not well, but since it's a
well,
horror book.
like I say, I always like to end up with a little bit of a glimmer of hope, and things get really bad, and but ultimately, I think the readers will be pleased with the way things end for her.
Well, that's
Uh,
good to hear.
a lot of people tell me they cried at the ending, and I was like, well, maybe so. I don't know, but I will tell you this: when I wrote it, my wife is my first beta reader. She reads everything, the rough draft of everything that I write. I'll just send it to her immediately when I get done. So I sent The Unkindness of Ravens to her. Well, let me go back. First of all, it started as a short story, and
Mhm.
it was about 10,000 words. And so I wrote it, and I was like, well, this is good. So I set it aside, but I just couldn't stop thinking about the story and about her. So I went back and probably wrote, you know, tripled the size of it, and finished her story. And so then I sent it to my wife. And so, like 2 days later, I'm back here in my office, and I'm just, working away. And she comes in here, opens the door, and she puts her hands on her hips, and she's like, "Who hurt you?" And I was like, "Yes, I know, I got it right." So, yeah,
Who hurt you? Oh, wow.
who hurt you?
You need therapy, John.
No. But it is that is my favorite book, actually. Just I love all my books. It's just like a parent loves all their children.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just the way that one, the way it just developed, and the way the character, the way Miranda just morphed and changed with the storyline. It just really, I think, as far as writing, it's probably my best technical writing, my best, most professional writing I think that I've done to date.
Yeah, oh man, I'm a big fan of the cover. Oh, I'm a cover person. Like they say don't judge a book by the cover, but I'm definitely going to do that.
I really
Because
love the cover. My idea
yeah.
for the cover really stunk. I thought it was really good, and my publisher said, "Well, how about this?" And I'm like, "Okay, mine sucks. So let's go with yours."
Yeah, no, this is really nice. I obviously didn't see yours, but that one that, the publisher chose for this is really nice. I was like,
Hmm.
"Ooh, I want to read that." From first seeing it.
And
That's
I
awesome.
love the very first line of it, and it's something along the lines of Miranda picked her way through the woods, following the sound of beating wings. And it just puts you in
In that moment.
that place just right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm the kind of person that I like to know like how things are made. I used to get in trouble all the time because I'd like take things apart and then my mom would be like, "Why are you doing this? You're breaking everything." I'm like, "No, I'm trying to learn the cogs and the mechanisms." When I read tales like this, I'm always like, "Are you okay? Do you need a hug?" Like I always wonder what writers and how they come up with these things, like where what happened, man? Like it's just
It's odd, but because I guess we all have things in our past that are dark, things that have happened, and but there's no specific. I don't think you could just point to one specific thing and say this is what made Stephen King that way, or Dean Koontz, or me, or anybody else. It's just I guess it was just a culmination of everything, and not to say that I don't. I'm not a like a dark, mopey person. I actually do have friends and stuff. So, but it's just inside. It's in there, and I don't know where it comes from. You
yeah.
know, essentially, but it's there, and when it comes out in my writing, which I enjoy. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's very nice because you're doing a art and you're leaving a legacy behind for the world. And that's pretty awesome. John, not that many people can say that. Many people will be here and gone and you know maybe they would have been really artsy or but they have no legacy and I can see you're leaving quite your art legacy behind for other generations to enjoy, so I definitely appreciate that.
well, thank you. I hope they do enjoy it. I think maybe one day in 100 years, they're they have the unkindness of ravens in some English literature class somewhere, and the teacher's like, "You have to read this by Monday," and the kids like, "Oh, this stupid guy,"
The
and they
stupid
all
guy that's making me do homework.
yeah, so they're all like, "This jerk," but you know hopefully, people will read in the future and they will enjoy it. And like you said, it is a little piece of me that can live
Live
beyond
on.
my mortal
Transcend.
core.
Yeah. I find that so fascinating. Like that you can write and this book and these books will remain here. Even too, if you have like the digital books that you sell,
Mhm.
people can read them on the go and then your stories will transcend physical. Now they'll be digital too, and that's
Mhm.
pretty awesome because if all books were destroyed, let's say tomorrow, it would be a very sad world.
It
But
would be.
you if you still have ebooks, you know
Well,
I
it's
don't know.
Southern Gothic is on Audible,
Oh
and
yeah.
I always like to tell people, I personally interviewed the narrators for Southern Gothic, and
Ooh.
and I went through several, and they were good, and a lot were really nice, and I told them, I'm like, I want Southern, but I don't want like hillbilly Southern. I don't want
Twangy to
ignorant. I
twangy.
just yeah, typical, just a good Southern vibe. And so
Yeah.
I found this guy. He sent his tape in, and right then I'm like, this is the guy. Everybody else just go home. It's over.
It's
I
over.
got the guy.
Ah.
But I tell
Ah.
people, I'm like, well, do you know Julia Roberts? And they're like, yeah, yeah. I'm like, you know, Julia Roberts' brother, Eric Roberts, who's also an actor. He was in he's not as big as Julia, but he was. And they're like, Eric Roberts. I was like, no, but this guy sounds like Eric Roberts, Julia Roberts'
Oh,
brother.
yeah.
So they're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. But he does kind of have that
That
perfect Southern,
vibe.
almost like a Matthew McConaughey type sound to his voice.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of accents. And I like your accent. It's very refined, very southern gentlemanly. It's very nice. Have you
Well, thank
tried
you,
maybe
thank you.
doing your own audiobooks?
No, I think I'm a little too nasally to do my own
Oh.
work. Um,
Mhm.
but you know, nobody likes to hear their own voice. I think so.
Yeah.
I know I
Yeah, I
don't.
think
So a lot of people say that.
yeah, I think you're very harsh on yourself because I hear back my
Hmm.
recordings when I'm editing or whatever. I'm like, ah, do I really sound like that? I sound like shit. And probably somebody else is like, ooh, that's a really pretty voice. And I'm like, no, I hate
You do.
it.
You have a very nice voice.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I still don't like it.
Well, I don't like mine either. So,
I don't think anybody, unless you're like a performer and your profession is singing, I don't think
do you
you'll
think
like your
like
voice.
do you think Morgan Freeman is like, God, I hate my voice? Probably not. You know,
Probably
he's probably
not.
like, yeah.
No.
He's like,
I mean,
yeah.
if I had Morgan Freeman's voice, I probably would not hate it at that point.
Oh no, I would hope not.
That's awesome. Well, are you planning on doing any more like audio audibles?
I think I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the
Mm,
process. I enjoyed and actually I sell very well on Audible.
yeah.
I guess like we spoke of before, the busy lifestyle that people have. So I really like it. And with my latest book that just came out on Friday the 13th of October, it is another collection of short stories. I think I may take the same route with it, and put it on Audible and see how it does.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's awesome because people can get like Kindle Audible memberships, read stuff if they
Hmm.
love it. They can buy copies of it and just have it forever. And I think it's awesome that people are
Well,
able to do that.
on my website, I make sure I have the link to Audible right by the book. So because some people don't like to read. People will tell, it's amazing that I'll be at shows and people will walk up and I'm like, well, what do you like to read? Do you like, dark Southern literature? Oh, I don't like to read. I'm like, well, then why are you at a bookshelf? But,
Yeah.
but I'm like, well, here's some on Audible if you like to listen to them. So
Yeah.
it's
And
important as a small author to
yeah,
get out there in every possible way you can. I
you
think. I
can.
mean, you have to.
Yeah. You're reaching a particular audience because also too, like when you're doing things that you may not like I don't want to work out, I don't want to cook, I don't want to clean. Well, when I'm cooking, cleaning, or doing all those tasks that I don't want to do, I can pop in my earphones, listen to my audiobook, and be taken to a different world. In this world, I'll be doing the mundane tasks, but I'll be listening to something amazing going on, and I'm just like, you kind of forget. That's the
Mhm.
appeal of it, really, is you
Well,
can
see,
be doing mundane.
I can't do that because I'll end up just stopping what I'm doing and just sitting there
And
listening.
listen.
Like if I'm in the
Oh,
car, we're going down the interstate, eventually I'll be like driving 40 miles per hour, just listen. So I'm paying more attention to the audible than the
then the
road.
road.
I'm like, what are you
Oh, yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
But
That's
a lot of
interesting.
people do. I mean, Audible is huge, and less or so, Google Reads and some other things that are out there for audiobooks as well.
Interesting. Interesting. I see here that you also have a book called Children of a Despicable Fate.
Hmm.
This one was released in uh
October,
October 3rd. Yeah. Friday the
Friday, Friday
13th.
the 13th. Yes,
This is all short stories as well?
it is. It is. It whereas Southern Gothic tends to span more of a, I guess, distance between the two, or in the different types of stories. These also are very different. There's some science fiction, dystopian, some, just straight Southern Gothic. There's some straight up horror, serial killers, things like that. Some fantasy. It does tend to revolve more around younger people who have a less than idyllic childhood, and some of the events that take place in that childhood. And I always like to throw this out there for people because you never know where their mind goes. But I'm not in the book. I'm not killing any children. No, I'm not killing children.
Right.
I'm not hanging them. I'm not doing anything terrible to them. It's just they're in situations that is not uncommon, but it's just
Yeah.
maybe I've highlighted it a lot more with maybe some supernatural elements or some other things that
Right.
for instance, one of the stories is called King Billy, and it is the story of a group of kids whose parents just took off and just abandoned them in this
Ooh.
house, and over the months that nobody noticed, their family dynamic sort of devolved into some like a weird, dark, crazy situation. And the story is told um, from the viewpoint of a police officer who is finally coming after 8 or 9 months, coming to do a wellness check on the family. And as he moves through the house, collecting children, from different rooms that are different states of being, and just his thought process as he collects those children. And so it's stuff like that. And the and the very end it takes a really sour turn. But that's another one. My wife is like, "What's wrong with you?" But it's like that. There's stories like that. Not necessarily children being murdered or anything. I'm dark. I'm not disturbed.
You're dark. I like that. I'm dark, not disturbed.
But it does. It also,
You need that on a mug. I'd buy it.
that's right. Or I need a hat with that on there.
Dark, not disturbed.
Um, but it does. It has some dystopian. There's a story of a young girl who has anesthesia, which is the ability to hear color. It's a real situation, a real medical condition where you can certain words evoke color in your mind that you see. And she lives in a futuristic, drab, colorless world. And so, that's her story. Um, so it's stuff like that, stuff, along those lines.
Mm, that makes a lot of sense. It's crazy how all these things can, you know, just come together, all these little stories. And
And
how has it been doing, this book?
it just came out on, in October, so a couple of weeks ago. I think it's doing well. You get a lot of delay from like Amazon and the booksellers. It takes months to really judge how well it did. But at the shows and places that I went in October, it did really well. So
That's really awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited to read that one. And it's just, you picked the perfect time for it to release on Friday the 13th,
mhm.
you know?
And actually, I did my launch party. There is a local haunted house um,
Ooh. Ooh.
exhibit thing here in town, and it's pretty big. And as fortune would have it, I know the man who runs it, so I got to set up in a booth in like the big waiting area for the launch party, and did the launch party from the haunted house. So that was pretty neat.
Oh, wow. That sounds so cool. Did you get a lot of people, like, interacting with you
Yeah,
and
I
buying it on
did.
the spot?
I got a few.
Really?
Yeah, a few through. Some of the actors came by. Freddie came by, Jason came by. So it was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
That's so awesome, man. I'm so excited for you and for this book. It sounds like it's going to be an awesome read. I haven't had a chance to read through this one, but I'm going to do that pretty soon here. I'm finishing up the your other book, and then after that I'll get right to it.
Well, I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah, of course. It looks really good, and all the little stories that you mentioned that are in there sounds interesting. Sounds so interesting. So for your future stuff, you did mention you have something coming out. What more can we expect from you in the upcoming years?
I do know that in the spring, I will release, or my publisher will release, 3 nights at the Jupiter.
Mhm.
It centers around a small town in Alabama who sequesters for 3 days every June to avoid an unseen creature who usually feeds on two or three of the townspeople. So the town just buttons up, boards their windows, and waits it out. And when it's over, they come out and they bury the dead, and then they just move on with their life. And a young man or a young police officer begins to question, everything because the town has happened so long. They just accept it. It just happens. It's one of the things that happen, and he begins to question all that, and then his life becomes unraveled. And the book takes place in the 3 nights during the sequester, while he lives at a very old hotel in downtown called the Jupiter Hotel. So
Wow, that sounds so awesome. Is there any potential for? I'm gonna pitch it to you. Are you ready?
mhm.
Is there any potential for you to write any fantasy horror books?
you know I I guess when I first got into horror, I said to myself, well, I'm not going to write a vampire book because it's been done so much. But that's essentially what 3 Nights at the Jupiter is. Um,
Oh.
and so I'm spreading my wings a lot, and I'm starting to dabble in some fantasy and some short story fantasy and
Yes,
genre,
I'm
and I
so excited
absolutely
for
love
you.
it. And it's amazing. I mean, it's fun. It's just very creative, very freeing to be able to do that. So definitely, I would not be opposed to it at all. If the story began to develop into a fantasy, um, area, I would definitely chase it as far as it wanted to go.
Yeah, that sounds so awesome. I'm ready to read like a Pan's Labyrinth, fantastical elf creatures with like horror elements. That'd be really
Well,
awesome.
I do have, and I'm not sure when it's going to come out, but I do have a novel written that is called The Last Elemental. It is
Ooh.
it's about a group of elemental spirits who are earth elemental. They're spirit elementals, and these people in this small town find them and they kill them. You know, and but one of them almost escapes, but they capture her and lock her in a bank vault for 50 years. I mean, she's trapped in this bank vault for 50 years. and there's a spell that binds her to the cell, and eventually they um, demolish the bank, and eventually they demolish the uh, the bank vault, and that unleashes her onto the town. So she's not a tiny little earth spirit anymore because of her anger and her rage over 50 years, and it gets pretty horrific after that point. But it is a lot of fantasy in it because she's tall and she's got big wings and she's pretty.
Ooh.
So yeah,
I
uh,
so like that.
and and I like to blur the lines with my bad guys because like her, she's really the bad person. She's the antagonist, but is she really?
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
they deserve it? So um, I had a lot of fun writing that. I really did. So.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me a little bit of the story. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story of Wicked.
Oh yeah.
Like, is she really the bad witch
I know.
though?
Yeah.
She kind of got screwed over, and
Yeah.
then I mean, I'd be on her same level too. I'd be
I'd be
upset too.
upset. Yeah.
So
So yeah.
that's why it's like, are you really the bad person, or is the whole world against you and then forcing you to be the bad person? Because
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. I
I like
mean,
that perspective.
and so and she yeah, she exacts her revenge. There's the horror element, but I mean,
Yay.
but at the same time, she also has made a connection with the guy who freed her, uh, in the fact that she touches him and lets him know the truth. So here he is. He's like walking around the town, and he knows the truth about everybody, you know, just like she does. And so he's like, well, I don't blame her, So and it gets pretty twisted tale their relationship, but it's not, anything comes of it, but just their union of the truth, that binds them, and he knows the truth about her, and everybody else in the town is afraid of her and hates her, and they're trying to kill her, So, but yeah, definitely, that's deep into fantasy territory, and I loved it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the fantasy genre, and when you put horror elements with it, I'm like all in.
Hmm.
It's awesome. It's
And it
phenomenal.
was fun. It was really fun. So I think, as an author, I don't think I could ever say that no, I'll not write that because I'll write whatever needs to be written, whatever I feel like has to be written.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you have a story in mind, regardless of where genre or where what piece of the pie this story fits in, as long as it resonates with you, really, that's what it should matter, right?
It is, and I think that's one thing why I haven't um, become like this horror guru or something, because I don't really. I dabble in the horror, and I'm pretty solid in it, but I'm not head over heels, neck deep in the blood and the guts and the
Mhm.
murder and the mayhem and all that. It's just dark. And
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same way because if a story like, oh my god, I always get shit for it, but I hate the franchise Saw, and I will always mention that and always get shit for it. But at the end of the day, it's not a story that resonates with me because sure it has blood, guts, gore, all that stuff, and but the story just kind of sucks. It's flat.
it's
There's
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 there's like no plot. It's really just shock value.
yeah, like how many little pieces can we chop someone up? And I'm like, where's the fun in that? Where's the
I mean, like
story? Where's the
the
depth? Where's
first
the
one, the
yeah.
first one was amazing, and it's like you're just, oh wow, that's crazy, that's insane. But then the second one, you're like, oh, that's kind of like the first one. Well, that's
Yeah.
like the second one. That's like the third one. So
And
yeah,
now with
I'm not a
10
big
in,
I'm not a big fan. So
yeah. After 10 in, it's like, well, can somebody put this guy in prison or something? Do
I
something?
know. So I do like to the horror aspect, and I do like the supernatural and the darkness and all that. But I think for me, plot and character and a story moving is more important than just chopping someone's head off for the sake of it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for understanding that concept. Because some
It,
people are like, how much blood can we put into this movie? And I'm like, yes, but is there a story to back up that blood?
I, yeah, and so if last year I released a story called The Muck, or a book called The Muck, and it's really psychological, and it's twisty, and there's plot twist, and there's just all kind of stuff going on, and but there's still some a little bit of gruesome stuff, not much. Some people took offense to a few things that were in it, um, but and at the end it gets a little scary, but it's really about the plot and the movement and the the flow of the darkness from here to here and how it affects the people and all that kind of stuff. Because it comes back to the horror and real life stuff for me. Because I love watching zombie movies, but zombies don't scare me. They're zombies.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
some maniac with a machete walking through your neighborhood, that's pretty damn scary.
That's
You know,
likely,
that,
though.
that's scary to me. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff I want to key on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I just like zombie movies because they're fun.
Oh, I love them.
The
Look, my
chase
favorite
and
movies of all time is Zombieland and
no.
Zombieland Double Tap. I mean, I love those movies, you know. But
Has that comedy element to it.
yeah, um, and I like the Walking Dead and all that. But I mean, they don't scare me,
No.
you know. But if I thought maybe some guy, when you lock your door at night and you peep outside, how you
He's
everybody does.
standing there. I was like,
And
oh
if there's
shit.
a guy with a knife there, that's going to scare the crap out of me.
Yes.
So
Yes. I don't know about you, but I'm currently in Florida, and Florida man is very scary to me.
it
You
might
you're
happen. It's best
yeah.
sometimes just not look. Just lock the door and go to bed.
Yeah, just whatever. Just have a weapon handy just in case shit goes south. You can just
Yeah.
I don't know. You didn't get any advice from me though. I'm not able to
That's
give
right.
any advice, but whatever. Do whatever you need to do, right?
Yeah. But I think the horror genre really has two halves to it. There's the half that is the blood and the guts and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and stuff like that, and then there's the half that's like classic Hitchcock or M. Night Shyamalan or
Yeah.
some of those where it's dark and it's scary and it's twisted, but it's not blood and guts. So I think
Yeah.
there really are two halves of the horror genre.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm a big fan of The Shining.
Oh yeah, and see, there's
And
not really any
it's
terrible blood and guts in that, I guess. I mean, I guess there
some
is a
just
river of
the
blood, but
yeah, but
it's not so much, entrails hanging out and things like that. So,
people
and
getting chopped up into little bits. No,
yeah,
none of that.
no, or
None of that. Just
so,
kind
and
of
see, that is a classic, amazing horror story to me.
mhm.
You know,
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's
hmm
actually one of my favorites. is
Hmm.
The Shining. I
Oh
like
yeah.
it. That's yep. I would say that's probably my favorite. I'm a big Stanley Kubrick fan.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Shout out Space Odyssey. Man,
Oh yes.
whew,
That's crazy.
that
Oh,
changed cinema. I can
oh,
sit
it was
here and talk
amazing.
to you about how it changed cinema all day, but yeah, to not make this a 3 hour show, we'll just have to just say it's the greatest film.
Oh yeah. It, I guess if somebody doesn't like it, it you just wonder how they went into it. What
Yeah.
attitude they went into it with.
Yeah.
Probably preconceived. Oh, I don't like it. I don't like science fiction, or I don't like whatever, or I don't like you know whatever.
Yeah, but it set the stage for a lot of like cinematography, some of the camera stuff that they use, how they were filming stuff upside down and like to get those cool footage. You know what I mean? It's just like who
Hmm.
would have thought of that and put people with cameras upside down and kind of simulate some of that space
Oh yeah.
technology.
Well,
Yeah.
like back in his time, Alfred Hitchcock was revolutionary in his movies that he made. Um,
Yes.
the standard Hollywood movie would have, say, 4 to 6 cameras. Well, Hitchcock wanted 27 cameras, and they're like, no. And he's like, we'll have 27 cameras or I won't do it. They're like, okay, we'll find you some cameras. And he used the different angles to
Mhm.
just, and with one camera shot, he could put you in a mindset of, uh, you know, isolation or horror or just being alone or despair. And so, I mean, a good cinematographer can do a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Going back to that a little bit, Psycho was such a good film, and he
Yeah.
captured that element very well. There's one scene in there where she comes in to get the keys or something. He's standing
Mhm.
right there. There's a owl, like a bird
Mhm.
statue there, and
Yeah.
he's just kind of like ominously looking, and I'm like, yes, that needs to be my wallpaper.
I know. And it's just stuff like that that people miss. I think that's why they
Mhm.
don't appreciate it as much. They
Yeah.
miss some of the nuances of just how amazing it really was, especially now when you can watch some of the Lord of the Rings and that epic cinematography they had, and
Oh, yeah.
then you look at Alfred Hitchcock with, say, the birds. I mean, he did a lot with a
Mhm,
little.
what he had,
Yeah.
yeah. He had to get creative there,
Hmm.
and it set the stage for now what we expect, you know?
See, that's what I grew up with, was stuff like that. Was Hitchcock. I mean, he was my hero. Just
Mhm,
everything that
aw.
he made, I watched it, and reading Edgar Allan Poe. Just
Mhm.
his darkness and his odd stories that he wrote. Um,
Yeah.
things like that. And I guess that's where all of my fascination sprouts, with the psychological, with the twists and turns and things.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, John. Do you have anything else that you wanna mention for our viewers before we kinda end things for the night?
Uh, just hey, visit my website, check it out. There's a lot of stuff to do on there. There's books that have out, books that are coming out, some books that are in production. There's a blog where I just kind of ramble on some idiotic nonsense that comes to me at different times. There's a poetry corner where I'll throw up a little poem every now and then. Um, just you can sign up for a newsletter once a month. I'll just send you a newsletter, and it's like, hey, I'll be in here, I'll be in Mobile, I'll be in Tennessee, or I hit the lottery, so this is my last email. things like that. And so,
Oh,
I'm very proud of the website, so,
yes.
because it was a lot of work, and,
Yeah.
and it gives you a lot much better in-depth description of all my work than I can do. I fail to do it justice, I think sometimes, but yeah, just check out the website and you know, hopefully you'll find something that you like.
Yeah, yeah. You guys saw he has quite the plethora of books, and you can definitely pick one that that you find the most interesting. And there's never a shortage of supply,
And
and
if you
there's
like dark poetry, there is actually a small chapbook of poetry on there.
oh,
Told,
there you
it's
go.
basically a collection of poems told from the viewpoint of a man on death row awaiting his execution. And so he tells a
Ooh,
series of poems, and
ooh, that sounds
I was
dark.
quite proud of it. So it gets a
Nice.
little dark.
That sounds very dark, and we love that around here. Well, next week, guys, if you guys tune in, we have a interview with Anthony Caro, who is a writer. He's written The Tragedy Man and a few other works. And also on Tuesday, we have a double fun week planned for you guys. On Tuesday, the 14th at 7 o'clock, same time, we will have a interview with the cast of Real Cool Time, which is an independent film that we were able to screen at Spooky Empire. And I think you guys should check that out also on Tuesday. So we have quite the fun plan for you guys for next week. So stay tuned. Thank you so much, John, for spending a lovely hour with us here and for, talking to our viewers and letting them know about your works. You've written such an amazing book. Um, that I've got to read, and I'm very excited for all the other books I will read that are yours.
Well, thank you. I thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope to be on again soon.
Yes, when your new book comes on, let us know and we can have a lunch party here.
Yeah,
That'll be so
perfect.
awesome.
That would
Yeah.
be great. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this is Luna signing out. See you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.